Hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello. I'm Debra Steward.
And I am Jabari Steward, and you are listening to the Lit Lounge Live.
Woo.
That's right. Keeping it lit with the light of Christ. We are purpose-driven marriage enrichment architects, helping Christian couples transform their marriages from just fine
to phenomenal.
That's right, because a phenomenal marriage is not built on autopilot, but it's built with intentionality. That's right. That's what it's all about. And today it's a very special episode because you get to hear us go through in real time. What are we doing, Fave, today?
We're doing the Marriage Reset Checklist. That's one of our products that we have to offer. And what it's about is 5 quick wins to rekindle your spiritual connection.
Wow. Yes, 5 quick wins to rekindle your spiritual connections. And even though this is a product, this is actually a product that we're offering to you today free of charge. This is something that we think all marriages need. Spiritual connection is the key pillar to our road to marriage transformation. We have a signature framework for marriage transformation, and we know for sure that without spiritual connection, having the power of Jesus Christ working in you and living in you, there's no way that you can get this thing called marriage done right.
And this Marriage Reset Checklist is very powerful because it focuses on taking intentional steps to reconnect spiritually with God and with each other. So it's really fun. So we're going to go ahead and go through it.
That's
today.
Right. All right. So the Marriage Reset Checklist offers you 5 quick wins to rekindle your spiritual connection, not tomorrow, but today.
Yes.
Tell us what this Marriage Reset Checklist is about.
Well, like we said, it's about recognizing the small habits that cause couples to drift apart and taking simple, powerful, and intentional steps, like I mentioned before, to reconnect spiritually with God and with each other. Awesome.
So with this marriage reset checklist, there are a list of things that you just want to check in and say, hey, are we doing these things? How often are we doing these things? How intentional are we about doing these things? And if you're not, you can start doing them and get back on track. And if you are, you can actually start honing in on how to do these things better. So the Marriage Reset Checklist has 5 key checkpoints on it. So you can kind of benchmark where you are with it. Babe, you want to read what they are?
Sure. Question or checkpoint number 1 states, we prayed together today. Number 2 is, we asked each other one spiritual check-in question. Number 3, we took one moment to appreciate each other aloud. Number 4, we shared a verse or a devotional thought. Number 5, we took a screen-free 10-minute walk or sit down.
Wow, just running through those again. Number 1, we prayed together. Even a 60-second prayer reminds your spouse that you're building something bigger together. And secondly, we asked each other one spiritual check-in question. We're going to actually do that in real time for you, so I don't even want to go through that. We're going to get to that in just a moment because too many couples, actually, Deb, the stat is like married couples spend less than 20 minutes a day talking to each other. Wow. How does that make you feel as a spouse hearing that?
It's pretty sad, but I could see how that could happen because we were once at that point.
That's right. We were there.
I definitely could see how that happened because that's real. And that 20 minutes is not, it basically is 20 minutes of speaking to each other, not about logistics and everything else going on, but just really connecting and talking to each other.
Right. Yeah, we were there because our conversations for us were more about, the logistics, like you said,
Right.
Picking up what's for dinner, who's doing this and who's picking up there and who's being the Uber and all that stuff. It was never about us just taking time to get to know each other.
Right.
And that's one of the things that we were that's one of the things we overcame
Yes.
And this marriage reset checklist is one of the tools that we use to grow closer spiritually, to help pull us out of that dark hole that we were in, and we didn't even know we were in it.
Exactly. That drift.
Wow. So getting back to that list, 3 is awesome. It says we took one moment to appreciate each other out loud, because gratitude spoken out loud is fuel for connection.
Yes.
Wow. We have to be able to verbalize our appreciation for our spouse, even when we don't feel like it, right?
Right. Probably especially when we don't feel like it. So we need to do it the most.
That's the best time, right? And 4 says we shared a verse or devotional thoughts. And this doesn't need to be like a deep verse or some long sermon. You just share together, even if you just, read it and say, what do you think about this? Or what stood out to you about this? Or just sharing, like this morning, we had a really good conversation that was kind of God inspired about this.
Yes, that we will share with you shortly.
All right. Well, we sure will. And number 5, keep them listening, babe. I love it. And number 5, we took a screen. We took a screen. It's hard for me to say it because I love my cell phone. We took a screen.
Yes, he does.
We took a screen free. I'm always in front of a screen. We took a screen free 10-minute walk or sit down. That's serious. 10-minute walk or sit down.
No phones, just presence.
That's amazing. No phones, just presence.
Yeah. So you have to ask yourself, are you doing these things? Have you done these things today? Have you done any of these? Have you done all 5 of them? Doing these 5, one or all, is really going to help you really keep your marriage in check and just kind of do a reset. And the more you're able to incorporate these into your daily lives, your marriage, you will find that your marriage will just get better and better. You'll just get to know each other better. You'll connect better with God, and everything will be great.
What would we say to those couples who are like, wow, I'm not doing any of those things, and they're feeling like guilt and shame, like, oh, my marriage is in the pits right now? Oh,
not at all. Don't feel like that. Just feel like you're normal. We were, like I said, my husband and I, we were in a state of disconnect where we just had really kind of disconnected from each other and even sort of disconnected from God also. So we had to really find our way back to each other, to God, and to really start incorporating these things into our lives. And once we started doing that, that's when everything really just started coming together, and we really just start vibing really well. So that was awesome.
That's right. If you don't know what disconnect is, that is the problem that we solve. We solve the problem of disconnect. We know that beneath the surface of every marriage struggle, there's one underlying cause. It's one word that holds the key to understanding it all. And that word is disconnect.
Right.
And that's disconnect from God and each other.
Exactly.
So it's on 2 fronts. You have to be connected, first of all, to Christ Jesus, because without him, you can't do nothing.
That's right.
And you definitely have to be connected with your spouse. If you're not connected with your spouse, then you're in this thing alone. And marriage is not something that's meant to be done alone.
Not at all. Not at all.
And in terms of where we were, babe, it's funny when you said that we were experiencing disconnect, which we definitely were. As soon as you said that, it was like we were disconnected from one another and from God, but we were connected to something else.
Yes. We were connected to being busy. It was this state of busyness that we were in at that time, and we were just all involved actually with, at that point, just getting our son into college. So that's what engulfed our lives for, I would say, pretty much a year, just working on schedules, going in out of town and college visits and just logistics of getting him back and forth to school, getting him back and forth to practice, connecting with this coach, connecting with that coach. And we were just in a whirlwind situation. And really, we just kind of put our marriage on the back burner. Not that, we weren't fighting or arguing or anything, but we just weren't taking that intentional time to be together. In fact, we used to have date nights every Friday night.
Friday, right.
And pretty much every Friday we were sitting in a basketball gym. So that was our date night.
That was it.
And it was like that for literally like a good hard year, really longer than that.
But it seemed to me like that it was more of a slippery slope because we got into it. It seems like it was a 4-year thing.
Right.
But that last year was the most
intense.
Yeah,
it was the most intense.
We were so excited going into this journey.
Right.
That, we got more tied to the journey than we got tied to the one who put us on the journey.
Exactly. We just, we were thanking God along the way for the opportunities that were set before us for our son, but we weren't really connecting with him and connecting with each other like we should. We were just on the go.
We were on not even on autopilot, but the basketball just consumed our lives.
Yeah.
And instead of allowing the blessings of God and using that, because even through that, God was doing miracles. We saw divine sovereignty in ways that we had never seen. God was literally wowifying us along the journey. But even in that, his mercy and grace on that journey, we were not intentional about connecting with each other. Those date nights, they became non-existent. And even after our son left for college, we had what I call PTBS, post-travel ball syndrome.
Right.
We would say, "Oh, we can't wait till this is over with, because when this is over with, we'll be able to have our date nights back and be able to do things and have the house to ourselves, blah blah blah, this, that, and a third." But when that happened, we were just sitting on the couch every night.
We still didn't really. It's almost like we kind of forgot how to connect. We were tired. Actually, we were like just physically and mentally drained just from the whole ordeal. And then we all of a sudden had all this time, but it was like, okay, now what?
Right. It's like even just date night was too much. And even the idea of a date night was way too much.
Right,
and even having those conversations where you just like this marriage reset checklist is about engaging with your wife, with your spouse, verbally, to get to know them better, to lay some spiritual foundation. Those things during that season of our lives, that was like the furthest from our mind, because it was way too much to even think about. We just had to decompress from 4 years of basketball running our lives.
Right. But actually after our son's first semester, or during the second semester, we came back from visiting him. We actually got a chance to visit him early part of the following year. And literally a day after we got back, I got really the most painful, traumatizing news I had ever had in my life up to that point. My dad passed away.
Yeah.
And that really hurt me to my core. I'm a total daddy's girl, so it was so traumatizing, and I was just numb. I really didn't know what to think, what to feel, or anything, but I pretty much just got back in that busy mode again, because I just jumped on with my brother to get all the funeral arrangements done and all that. And I pretty much kept myself busy so, I didn't have to feel the pain. Of course, I had to make sure mom was okay during all that time. And, Jabari, he tried to be there for me and help me out, but I didn't even know what kind of help or support that I even needed at that time. So it was it was a rough go.
Yeah, that was tough. That was a huge wake up call for us during that time.
Yeah.
It like I will always say, it shattered, the illusion of comfort that we were clinging to, just sitting on the couch every night. Even on Sundays, we didn't have time to go to church or anything like that. So there was nothing going on spiritually that was enabling us or fostering spiritual growth or even spiritual connection in our lives. And through that season, we were able to look back and come together spiritually and say, hey, we need to make a change. We have to make a deliberate, intentional decision to get back with God. And once we did that, the getting back with each other, not that we had a negative thing between us, but we didn't take the opportunity over those 4 years to really lay the foundation and sow into each other, to get to know each other more as spouses, because we were showing up more for our schedules than we were for our marriage. And and that wake up call when Dad died, it was like, hey, now we can actually start building on what matters most. And that's our connection with God and our connection with each other.
Yeah. After my dad passed away, that's when it really hit me like, man, we need to find a church home, because we had not been able to go to church because of our weekend schedules and the basketball gyms and tournaments and out of town. So that just kind of faded. So, we eventually said, hey, let's find a church home. So we went to a couple of churches, and then when we went to Saddleback South Bay, we were just like, wow, it felt comfortable. Everybody was nice and sweet and met us with hugs, and the atmosphere was just real peaceful. So, we, even if it seemed like every message that the pastor preached was like directed right at us. Right. So it was like, right on time. This is the place. We went back a couple Sundays, and finally we decided, hey, this is really where we need to be. So we actually started serving together there as part of their version of new members classes called Activate. So we actually became what they call table leaders, and just kind of guided people through this Activate process. And we did that together. We went to trainings together, and just that togetherness and studying God's word, studying what we were going to do, and serving the people around us, that was really the jump start that brought us back together.
It was so many miracles that happened even on that journey. You mentioned we went to the training for Activate and driving out to the Lake Forest campus. Yeah. And Saddleback was serving food there, and one of the servers there was the children's pastor. Not the children's pastor, one of the former pastors in the children's ministry at Saddleback. And Kirk was serving, and I was like, Kirk, what's up, man? I hadn't seen him in at least, I've been a member of Saddleback at the date of this recording, about over 15 years. And I hadn't seen him in about probably 13 years.
Yeah, wow.
And then as soon as we walked into the actual worship center, nobody was really in there because we were there like very early.
Very early.
As soon as we walked in, I saw a gentleman that I hadn't seen in 15 years, John Caputo. And I think John is over the SK right now at the time of this recording. And I was like, wow. And he was still John, and he was, he does his Robin impressions. He said, holy hand grenade. He was so shocked to see me. I was like, oh, wow, man, it was all good. But God had he left us those nuggets of affirmation and nuggets of confirmation that we were being rewarded for being in the right place, in his will, being spiritually connected. So speaking of being spiritually connected, let's dive into this marriage reset checklist.
All right, let's do it.
All right.
So we're just going to do a few of them. Let's go straight to number 2, where it says, we asked each other one spiritual check-in question. So I will ask you.
Hold on. We got to let them know that the prompt is already there.
Right.
The prompt, so you don't have to make this up. The prompt, the question that you're going to ask is already there on the checklist. So
yes, it is.
It's right under number 2, and we're just going to read it right off the PDF.
So it says, what is one way you felt God's love today? And how can we show that same love to each other this week?
What is one way I felt God's love today? And how can I show that same love to you this week? I know I just changed the pronoun, but have to personalize it.
Sure, yes.
Okay, so I felt God's love, let's say today. Just looking back on, I was thanking him for this week. This week has been really, the past few days have been really trying. Deb was in a car accident a few days ago. It was actually a hit and run. That's a whole nother story. But she was in a hit and run where she actually got hit, and the person that hit her, they were at fault, definitely, and they fled the scene, and it was crazy. So just having Deb here today, that she's okay, she's safe, she's healed up, she's healing up, I should say, knowing that she's able to get the medical care she needs, and also to be able to just have the spiritual, supernaturally, having God just working on her body and in her mind, giving her time off from work to heal up, not just physically, but mentally as well. I was thinking about all that today, and how I was, able to kind of be here with her a couple of days to kind of just make sure she was good, but enjoying the time with her as well. So I was thinking about that today, and during this time, a business opportunity opened up, a new business opportunity. Yes. And it started off like I didn't know what it was going to be, and it looked like nothing on one day, and then 24 hours later it was like, okay, well, Deborah's just smiling right now.
Yeah, this is amazing. It's going to be something really awesome.
And then the next day it was like, okay, Lord, are you sure you want me to do this? And so I was asked to do something for someone that I had really never done for anyone before, except for us, for keeping it lit.
Right.
And they asked me to help them out and to support them on their mission. And I was like, okay, well, let's talk about it. So we had a talk, and I was just telling God today just how amazed I was about how he allowed me literally to start a business in a day.
Yes.
Right. In 24 hours.
Yep.
Start a business. So that's an amazing thing that I just felt God's love today. He just said, hey, and I always say that God can do more for you in 10 minutes than you could do for yourself in 10 years, things like that.
Right.
And that's what he did. He did more for me in 24 hours than I could do for myself in 24 lifetimes.
Yes. That's awesome.
And that's one way I felt God's love today.
And how can we show that same love to each other this week?
Well, I'm just going to put me in it. I'm going to say, how can I show that same love to you?
Okay.
How about that?
Yeah.
And then we can fuss and fight about how we go do it together.
Okay.
So how can I show that same love? I think I can do the same thing for you by making sure that I find ways where I can come out of the box and do things that will wowify you. Like today, for instance, right now, I'll share. Here's a way that I know for sure. I just was coming out the kitchen, and my mind today is like, even coming home, I got to put those dishes in the dishwasher.
Ooh.
See?
Ooh, I love that.
See there. So that's one way that I can actually do that. And I was going to do it before we started the podcast, but we didn't have enough time.
Yeah.
So, that's one way I will, show you that same love. Just wowify you with something that's out the box.
I am wowified. I am truly wowified. That would be awesome.
And that just goes to show you, spouses, that especially men, you don't have to spend a lot of money.
Right.
You don't have to do do the luxury thing. You don't have to do the romanticized pop culture thing. You just have to do what needs to be done that no one wants to do.
Ain't that right?
And doing those type of things, how can you allow God to love your spouse through you? Those are the things. You don't want to, I got to go to the mall and get this, got to do that, blah, blah, blah. No, do something right in your home for your spouse that she will appreciate.
Yes.
Ditto.
Yes, I definitely feel appreciated.
Right. And it's not even done yet. So wait till I do it. It's going to be like it's a lit level up after that. Watch out.
Yes.
All right, babe. So
Ask me the question.
Let me ask you, what is one way you felt God's love today? And how can you show that same love to me this week?
Today, I felt God's love really in my healing. You know, you mentioned that, yes, I was in a car accident a few days ago, and the first few days were pretty rough. I'm not out the woods yet, but I'm definitely feeling better, a whole lot better. So I really was just thanking God for his healing and just thanking God that this could have been a lot worse.
Yeah.
You know, it could have ended horribly. And I'm thankful to God that I have my life and my aches and pains and bumps and bruises are on the mend. Mm-hmm. And I'm just so grateful for God's love, for his healing power. And that's really how I felt God's love today, just the healing that he's doing in me.
Wow, that's a great share. Great share. And what about the second part of the question?
Well,
how can you show that same love to me this week?
I could show that same love to you this week by just focusing on ways that I can make your life easier, just make things flow a little better for you. I can just kind of talk to you and ask questions. Hey, love, I can actually ask you, hey, what can I do for you this week? How can I help your, make your life easier and feel better, in a healing way, but just make your life easier.
That sounds great. I would definitely feel loved if you did that, and I feel all that love, even more love. So yeah, that's great. So that's most of the actual second part of our marriage reset checklist. It says this though, the next thing says, spot God's love, then act on it toward each other. That summarizes the entire exercise.
Yes. Well, we did.
Yeah, that's right. We recognize God's love in our lives, how he's showing up for us.
Right.
And then show up for your spouse the same way.
Yeah. How
God is showing up for you. Find a way to be an imitator of Christ and show up for your spouse the same way.
Yeah, that's it.
Because marriage is all about allowing God to love your spouse through you.
Yes.
Awesome. What's next on the list, babe?
Okay, checklist number 3. We took one moment to appreciate each other out loud. Gratitude spoken out loud is fuel for connection.
Yes. Well, you want me to start?
Sure.
Okay. So let me take one moment to appreciate you aloud on wax on this podcast. Love, I really appreciate you always looking out for me, making sure that I think just recently, this past week, it was a very rough week for you. Being in a hit and run accident, the trauma of all that, damaging the whole thing with the car, and we're still not out the woods yet. We still got transportation issues we got to deal with right now. But even in all that, your physical challenges right now, Even in all that, you have still been on the spot, if not even more so, in terms of blowing wind in my sails, making sure that you're celebrating me. You're making sure that you're not just celebrating me, but you're celebrating how God is working in my life. And you're just like, your smile, your words of encouragement, God has just showed up in our lives, and he's opened up a new door for me. And you're right there standing, you've walked through the door already, and you're like, hey, come on, you can do this, come on, yeah. So just you being that number one cheerleader over these past few days, even in your condition, what you went through, I appreciate that. And I appreciate it right now. I appreciate it out loud, because you've been so encouraging. It's not so much of what you did, is who you are. It's that I see you as Jesus, as his love, something that I could never even imagine, something that I'm not used to having, never been used to having until you came into my life. How you just encourage me with that smile and your countenance as I'm doing stuff. I can say, oh, my wife is really loving this. This is encouraging. She's like, her spirit is just saying, hey, I love you. I love this. You can do this. This is where I want you to be. Let's make this late. Let's take this land,
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you, love.
You're welcome. And it just feels so awesome to have you saying, even when you don't say it, you say it with your actions, with your words, with your spirit. I can feel it. You're saying, hey, you can take this land, and I got your back. Matter of fact, I'm already over in here waiting for you to take this land. So let's do this.
That's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I appreciate that. So let's see how I appreciate you. Where do I start?
At the beginning, of course.
Well, I appreciate the way you take care of me. You're always there, like whatever I need, you are Johnny on the spot. So if I ever need anything, I know I can simply ask you, hey babe, can you get this? Can you do that? And you'll ask me, is there anything I could do for you? And those are just like, wow, I'm still feel overwhelmed with joy when you ask me that question, because that just lets me know that even in the middle of whatever you're doing, you're stopping and asking me what you can do for me. So I really appreciate that. And just the little things you do around the house, like you already, put in a load of dishes and got some dishes done, and just other things, washing towels, just little things that you do just consistently that really show that, for one, you don't expect me to have to do it all, but that you do it without making it a big deal. And I just want to let you know that I appreciate all the little things you do, that I see you.
Hey, now. And,
even taking the trash out. I have never, ever taken the trash out since I've been married. I used to have to when I was single, because there wasn't nobody else to do it. But, just taking the trash cans, outside to the curb. I've never, ever had to worry about having to do that. So just, things like that, and just the way that you show love to me. You bring me little gifts, you think about me, something's going on at work, like, oh, we had this today, I brought you a donut, or it could just be anything. So I just really appreciate how you let me know that I am always on your mind, and just always. Even the text messages throughout the day, just checking in with me, seeing how I'm doing. You usually text me before I text you, and it's just lets me know that I am on your mind, and you're thinking about me, and that most importantly that you're praying for me. So I really appreciate you, love.
Oh, thank you, babe. I appreciate that. Yes. Hey,
yes.
now. So That's what it looks like. That's what marriage looks like. Now, that was a special moment. Now, don't get me wrong. We still have our moments of conflict.
Of course.
And that's the thing. We still are going to disagree. We still are going to have issues and challenges in our marriage. But we have the foundation knowing that we love each other unconditionally. We support each other unconditionally. And even in conflict, we're going to reconcile with one another unconditionally. And this was a moment right now that needs to be on worldwide news, where you have a couple of color, an African American couple.
Yes.
Showing appreciation verbally, not sexually, verbally,
right,
with one another in a way that connects on a spiritual level.
Right.
Because everything we just said was about how God is loving our spouse through us.
Yes.
Because we can't do this on our own. And I love the fact that you said you just feel that you're always on my mind.
Yes.
And that's something like I never realized, but it is. You are.
I can tell.
You're like, and fellas, that helps, because it doesn't matter where I am. It doesn't matter who's in the room. It doesn't matter what she might look like in the room, or what she has on or what she doesn't have on. Because my heart, not because of me, but because of God's power, always has Debra Steward on my mind. She's always there. So she don't have to worry about anything, but I don't have to worry about anything, because I have a supernatural power.
Yes.
Living in me.
Yes.
That I don't deserve to have, that allows me to move beyond all distractions.
Yes.
And say, hey, I love my wife.
Yes, yes, I feel it. I feel it.
Yeah.
And, this checklist is really powerful and so important, because no matter what conflicts or disagreements you're going through, if you're a married couple, you guys got married for a reason.
That's right.
There were things that you saw in your spouse that you loved. Mm-hmm. That's why you asked, and that's why you said yes.
That's right.
So you definitely have something that you appreciate about your spouse. Even if you literally, just had a disagreement, even after the argument, after the conflict, after the disagreement, you still can take a moment and share something that you appreciate about each other. That's
right.
Why this checklist is so important, to do this, either all 5 or 1 or 2 of these daily.
Daily, yeah. Because
it's just so important. You don't want most of your conversation to be about the disagreements and the times when you were arguing. You want to be able to have more positive moments, more appreciative moments. You want those to, outnumber the not so good moments. So if you make it a point to show that you take a moment to appreciate each other out loud, you can't even imagine what that feels like to do that on a daily basis. It's really powerful.
Because the challenges are going to come without question.
Yeah.
One of the myths in marriage is that, we watch too much Snow White and too many fairy tales. Like, it's never going to be conflict. You guys are never going to argue. Right. That's impossible.
Just going to be swept away and right off into the sunset with your Prince Charming.
Right. That's impossible. So the beautiful thing that you said, Deb, is like, having the ability to pour into your marriage when things are good.
Right.
And that's what we miss, that intentionality.
Yeah.
And there's a refreshing in that. There's a confidence in that.
Yes.
Knowing that we have more positive input verbally.
Yes.
In our marriage than we do negatively.
Yes.
And that's, verbally, in terms of our verbal, what we say, what we do, how we think.
Right.
It's more positive equity that has been built up than negative equity.
Right.
And here's the thing. When you have this framework to say, hey, I'm going to pour into your life right now with some words. I'm going to give you some appreciation right now. I'm just going to take 30 seconds and let you know why I appreciate you. When you can do that as spouses, it unlocks revelation that allows you to go into conflict with confidence.
Yes. That's so true, because you've already shown your spouse and you've already told your spouse how much you appreciate them. So then when conflict arises, guess what? You don't take it as personal.
It's not personal.
You don't take it to heart as much, because you don't think like, oh, he said that on purpose. She said that on purpose. He said that to hurt me. She said that to hurt me. No, because he or she just got through appreciating you out loud and telling you how much they appreciate you. Someone who appreciates you that much, there's no way they intentionally are doing something to, or saying something to intentionally harm you.
Babe, that's rich, because I think that's the illusion that the enemy puts on purpose-driven marriages.
It does.
Is that you intentionally tried to hurt me.
Right. And that's how we think.
If we don't say that, we are definitely thinking that.
Right.
You did this intentionally to hurt me. And we don't even talk about it. It's like something will happen and your feelings get hurt, and the first thing you think is like, oh, they did this intentionally to hurt me. And then you start thinking about what your ex did and all that other stuff and what you went through, when you was a young adult or a teenager, and you kind of tie your spouse into all those things, what that person did to you at the mall and all those bad experiences. Then you just put them on your spouse. You intentionally did this to hurt me. But when you are intentionally taking the time to pour words of affirmation, words of appreciation,
yes,
words of kindness, thankfulness, and lovingness into your spouse regularly, when you're intentionally doing that.
Yes.
When your spouse hurts you, and that's going to happen. I said, when Deborah hurts me,
yeah,
I already know, well, she didn't mean to do that.
Right.
She's not trying to hurt me intentionally.
Right.
So that gives us the confidence going in, hey, we need to have a conversation about this. Let's understand this. And what I was saying about the confidence in conflict, when you're going through that conflict, a whole nother level of awesome wonder is just revealed, because you learn more about your spouse than you did before you went into that conflict, if you do it the right way, with the right framework. And you also learn more about yourself.
Yes, that is so true. One thing that we've learned about conflict, even just with each other, that when there is conflict, we ask each other questions instead of just sitting there being heard and thinking, why did he say that? Or why does he think like that? And I don't think like that. And, kind of trying not to think, well, he's not thinking right, his way is wrong, or he's overreacting and it's too much. There's no way that should have hurt him that much. Instead of thinking that.
Those aren't questions, right?
You have to ask the question. You have to sit back and say, wait a minute. Okay, why does that hurt him? Why did that offend him so much? It certainly was not my intention, but that's how he took it. Why? And when you ask those questions, you get to know your spouse, and when you get to understand that why, it's such a powerful and amazing epiphany to get to know that part of your spouse. Because had you not had that conflict, then you would not have known that. But you gain some wisdom and knowledge, a nugget about your spouse, about either the way they grew up or something in their past, or why this was a trigger for him. And that lets you know, okay, so now I need to either not do that or say it in a different way or rephrase it, or you understand where he's coming from. And it's so powerful because you're like, wow. And you get to even appreciate your spouse even more too, because I love learning things about my hubby.
Hey, now.
It's like, wow. And then all of a sudden you say, that makes sense. Mm-hmm. And then there you go. That's just something else you learned.
That's great insight. It's all about having the framework to go forward, not just in conflict, but in marriage. Yes. There's a framework that you have to have, and our solution to the problem of marital disconnect is our signature framework for marriage transformation.
Yes.
And that's built on 4 foundational pillars. Spiritual connection is the foremost pillar. It is the cornerstone of our signature framework for marriage transformation. And the marriage reset checklist, and the link will be somewhere around in this podcast, so you can go get that for free. The marriage reset checklist helps you nurture that spiritual connection.
Yes.
It's a guide. It helps you to, if you can read, if you can write, or whatever you can do, if you can just be present with your spouse, and do these prompts, you will begin to step toward a marriage that is phenomenal.
Yes.
A marriage that is deeply rooted, where you feel genuinely understood and unconditionally loved.
Yes. Yes.
The second pillar that we build on is selflessness and service, where you're learning to serve one another with Christ-like humility. And all these are definitely rooted in the Word of God. The spiritual connection, I said it, but let me just mention it. You want to say something, babe?
I was just going to mention the last 2. Go ahead.
Oh, okay.
First 2.
Yeah, so spiritual connection, I've been saying it. Jesus said, without me, you can't do anything. That's John 15:5 out the CEB version. Without me, you can't do anything. That's the bottom line. I can't be the spouse that I've been called to be without the power of Christ Jesus.
That's right.
Selflessness and service, that's the principle of humility, where you're learning to serve one another with Christ-like humility. Philippians 2, verse 3-4 says, be humble toward one another, always considering others better than yourselves.
Yes.
Be humble toward one another. Always, not sometimes, always.
Always.
When you hurt, when you're offended,
right.
When you don't feel like doing it, when you just, irritated, when the stressors of life are like clawing at you, when the job ain't right, the money is tight, always considering others better than yourselves. That you have to put that in marriage. We put these scriptures in marriage,
right? Because
they haven't been taught that way,
right?
We think of others outside of our homes. But no, I gotta be humble toward my wife, always considering my wife better than myself. Philippians 2, 3-4.
Yeah. And the other 2, the third pillar is communication and love.
Yes.
And that is building communication that fosters love, trust, and understanding. And the verse we use for that is Proverbs 15:4, which says, kind words bring life.
Yes.
Your words need to be kind and filled with love, even in an argument. I know that's hard, but, we have to remember, it's not always what you say, but it's how you say it, and the words you choose when you say it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
I just have to say this. There was a comedian. We love Michael Yo.
Yeah.
Michael Yo. And he says when he's about to say something and his wife does something that he can't believe, his dad told him, don't say the first thing. Don't say the second thing, but say the third thing that comes to mind.
Yeah, Michael Yo.
So, that is you can kind of incorporate that into communication and love. with the kind words. The other Bible verse we use is Matthew 18:15. And it says, if another believer sins against you, go privately and point out the offense. So you may say, okay, what does that mean? Well, it means that if your spouse hurts you or says something to offend you or does something to offend you, you have to go to them.
Wait. You're telling me that this verse is not talking about my coworker? It's not talking about that friend of mine?
We are making this about your spouse.
So you're telling me, this is what you're telling me. You're telling me that if you sin against me, if you hurt me, I have to go privately to you and point out the offense?
Yes.
That's right.
Because if not, guess what? It's going to build up into this horrible thing called resentment.
And unforgiveness. That's right.
And unforgiveness. And then when your spouse does the same thing again, because guess what? You didn't go to them when it hurt you the first time, and he's clueless that it even hurt you. He even hurt you with what he said or did, maybe you still don't go to him that second time, and then he does it a third time. You are just like a pot that is about to boil over, and then you explode on him. And yes, I'm speaking from experience. You explode on him, and then he's like, what's going on? What is something? There's some underlying drama. There's something underlying with this, because your reaction is way over the top. So yes, you need to go to, even if you think it's something minor, because the small things are what build up into big things.
Yes, it's not when you're big offended in a significant way. It's any offense.
Anything.
When your spouse sins against you, anything.
Yeah.
You go privately to them. And before you move on to the last pillar, this pillar right here is one of the most complex pillars. It is the most complex pillar of our signature framework for marriage restoration. You mentioned some things about kind words, and even when you don't feel like it, that's tough to do. If you hang with us, get connected with us, stay connected with us, keepingitlit.media.com. Find us on YouTube as well. We have a framework that will actually help you in those heated moments.
Yes.
To not instead of throwing gasoline on the fire, we have a framework that will help you literally say the words that you need to say to bring life, even through conflict.
Yes.
We have something for that. So you're not speaking, even though you're emoting and you're upset, you're hurt, and you might be, mad as all get out at your spouse.
Yep.
You can still stay on target. You can still walk down the path of reconciliation using this framework, because the words are right there. You just have to read them.
And fill in the blanks.
Fill in the blanks. Just have to read the words.
Right.
Yeah. So building communication that fosters love, trust, and understanding. It's very complex, because communication, first of all, there's a message, and that message has a sender, and that message has to be received.
Yes.
And then the person that's receiving the message and sending the message have to agree that was the message that was intended to be sent.
Right. That's it.
That's very complex.
Very complex.
That takes a lot of questioning, and it's even tougher in conflict. That's why we have a framework ready to go. So just stay connected with us, and you'll be exposed to that. Learn more about it.
Yes.
KeepingItLitMedia.com. Keeping, that's with a G, itLitMedia.com. Or you can just Google Jabari Steward, Debra Steward, right here at Lit Lounge. Should be a link somewhere around this podcast.
All right. And our last pillar is forgiveness and grace.
Yes.
Woo. And this is cultivating the ability to forgive and offer grace in every circumstance.
Every circumstance.
Keyword: cultivating the ability. This is something, forgiveness and grace is ongoing. You are constantly learning how to do this, cultivating the ability to forgive and offer grace in every circumstance. And this is based on Ephesians 4:32 that says, be kind to each other.
Yes.
tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God has forgiven you. So we know what Jesus did on the cross for our sins. So we need to hold that same type of love and forgiveness that he had for us, because we have done all kinds of horrible things. We know we've done things. We have things that we've done that, we even might even say, man, I don't even deserve forgiveness from that God. You actually are forgiving me for this? And sometimes we've done things that we can't even forgive ourselves for. But we know that Jesus has forgiven us. Like I said, he died on the cross for our sins. God gave his son to die for us, for our sins, to forgive us. So we certainly can forgive ourselves. And with that forgiveness, we can give that same forgiveness to our spouse. And there's always going to be, the hard conversations or the moments when your spouse does something huge, something huge that really just like stabs you in the heart. That's what it feels like. But right here, it says to forgiving one another, be kind to each other, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, just as God has forgiven you. So that is really, really important. We want to offer that same grace to our spouse that God has given to us.
There's this is the pillar that it was really hard for me to talk about, because we've heard Jesus so much. How dare we hold something against our spouse? How dare we hold something against our spouse?
Yes.
And I would ask this question, like, what if the Lord forgave you as you forgave your spouse? What if Jesus forgave you just like you forgave your spouse? That's deep. And here's, we're listening to this Cunningham. He says, here it is on a bumper sticker.
Yeah. Here it is on a bumper sticker.
Forgiveness isn't just a one-time event. It's a lifestyle inside marriage.
Yes.
Forgiveness isn't just a one-time event. It's a lifestyle inside marriage.
Yes.
Forgiveness should be a lifestyle within your marriage. It should be a lifestyle within our marriage.
Yes.
Every Christian marriage should have a lifestyle
of
forgiveness. How can you worship God and not forgive your spouse?
Right.
Jesus said, if you come bringing your gift to the altar and you got something against your neighbor,
right,
your spouse is included in that. First of all,
that's it.
People in your own household, leave your gift and go reconcile. Right. Go reconcile, because so much of our teaching is like, hey, well, I'm gonna do what God says do. Worship God. No, where God said, hey, get your life right with your spouse.
Yes.
How can you hold something against your spouse when Jesus has forgiven you of so much?
Yes.
Bottom line. So those are our 4 pillars. Stay connected with us, keepingitlit.media.com. There's a link somewhere around this podcast. You can look us up online, YouTube channel as well, Keeping It Lit Media on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram as well. We're there, and we really enjoyed this time just sharing.
Yeah.
This was fun. It was fun.
It was a lot of fun.
Please check out our marriage. Go ahead and pick up our marriage reset checklist. It's free of charge. It's our gift to you.
Right.
So you can start stepping toward a more phenomenal marriage that's more spiritually connected, where you guys feel genuinely understood and rooted in purpose. Every marriage has to have a strong spiritual center. That's just not praying together. That's allowing God's supernatural power to allow him to love your spouse through you.
Yes.
Any last words for us, baby?
Yes, you pretty much summed it up, but I also like to say to be be the hands and feet of Christ to your spouse. Churches, always, we're the hands and feet to the community, to the homeless, taking things, giving food or just giving ourselves, giving of our time to the less fortunate, you could say. But how much, not that you shouldn't do that, but how much more should you even give of your time and your love and, your unconditional love and your time to your spouse?
That's right.
Yes, because charity begins at home.
That's it.
So you want to pour that love, and again, just be the hands and feet of Christ to your spouse. That's
right. Wow, that's good stuff, babe. Thank you guys for joining us for this episode of the Lit Lounge Live.
Yes.
This podcast is brought to you by Keeping It Lit Media in the house. That is your go-to for transformative marriage enrichment.
Yes.
I am Jabari Steward.
And I'm Debra Steward.
And until next time, keep your marriage lit.